Hello there, and welcome back to Non-Name Talks.
It's great to be here. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something pretty fundamental, really. Happiness.
Yeah, it's the big one, isn't it?
Totally. Like, what does it actually mean? And, how do we find it, especially now? And maybe even, how do we help others find it, too?
Exactly. It's something everyone chases in one way or another. So for this deep dive, we've gathered all the sources you sent over articles, some research notes, and our goal really is to pull out the key ideas. Where does our current thinking on happiness come from? What actually makes a difference? And crucially, what practical things can we do?
And the sources are pretty varied, which is great. We've got psychological stuff on, like forgiveness, gratitude, all the way up to these big international studies looking at social factors.
Right, and even some really specific things about, say, happiness at work.
It definitely shows it's not just one simple thing. It's messy.
Complex.
Definitely complex. And, starting right off, one thing that comes through strongly is that happiness isn't just about external stuff.
Yeah.
What happens to you? Right. It's not just getting the promotion or the new car.
Exactly. It seems deeply tied to our sort of internal state and how we interact with the world with other people.
So less about ticking boxes, more about internal landscape.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, look at the World Happiness Report source. It analyses life evaluations across countries. And yes, things like GDP per capita, healthy life expectancy, they matter. Of course they do.
Sure. Money and health. Basic needs.
But they explain a big chunk of the differences when you also include these other key things. 6 variables in total they highlight.
Okay, so what else is in that mix?
Well, social support, huge one. Having someone you can count on.
Makes sense.
Freedom to make life choices, generosity, both, like giving and maybe seeing it around you, and even how people perceive corruption.
So it's societal stuff too. Trust. Fairness.
Right. And the report really points out that these social things support freedom, generosity, that they seem to have a really strong link to positive emotions, which in turn feeds into how people rate their lives overall.
Yeah, I can see that. Feeling connected, feeling like you have some control, seeing kindness. That feels like, well, fertile ground for happiness, doesn't it?
It really does. And speaking of internal states and connection, one of the sources, iStrong, talks about a specific practice.
Forgiveness. Yeah, I saw that. It called it a miracle medicine for the mind. That phrase definitely stuck out.
It's powerful, isn't it? The idea is that forgiveness is just vital for healing when you've been hurt or you're holding on to anger. And the key point it makes is that holding on to that stuff, it actually hurts us the most.
Right. Like carrying around a heavy bag you don't need.
Exactly. And it's not just emotional weight, according to the source. It talks about physical effects, too, like linking that resentment to higher blood pressure, heart rate, stress, even a higher risk of depression. So letting go isn't just like a nice thing to do. It's actually about your own health.
Okay, but I think, sometimes people feel like forgiving means saying what happened was okay, or that it makes you look weak.
Yeah, and the source tackles that head on. It's really clear. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It's not excusing the behavior. And it's definitely not weakness. Actually, it frames it as an act of strength, self-love even. It's about choosing to release the anger for your own sake so you can move on.
So it's more about freeing yourself than letting the other person off the hook.
Pretty much, yeah. That's the angle here. And it even lays out like a 4-step process to learn how to do it.
Okay, let's hear it. What are the steps?
First step, identify. Get clear on who caused the pain, what actually happened, often linked to unmet expectations, the source notes, and what specifically needs forgiving.
Okay, so pinpoint the issue. Don't just have this vague cloud of resentment.
Exactly. Step 2, allow the feelings. Anger, sadness, whatever it is, let yourself feel it. Don't suppress it.
Right, acknowledge it.
Then step 3, which is kind of the motivation step, understand the benefits for you. Why do you want to forgive? Better health, moving forward, finding real happiness, connect with that payoff.
Makes sense. You need a reason to do the hard work. And step 4.
Forgive and learn. Actually release that internal anger, but also crucially learn from it. What insight can you take away? Quote Oprah Winfrey, actually. Forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could be any different.
That's powerful. Accepting what is.
Yeah, accepting reality and choosing how to move forward from there.
Okay, so that's releasing the negative. What about actively building the positive? The Chula psychology source gets into gratitude.
It does. Positions gratitude right at the center of positive psychology. And lists a whole bunch of benefits. Better physical health, mental health, more positive emotions. Higher life satisfaction, stronger relationships, overall happiness, and it even mentions a link to longevity.
Longevity. just from being grateful. That's
Yeah.
quite something. It mentioned a model too, right? The ARC of gratitude.
Yeah, ARC. It's a neat way to remember it. A is for amplifies. Gratitude helps you see the good stuff more clearly. It sort of expands your view, makes things look brighter.
Like putting on positive glasses.
Kind of, yeah. Then R is for rescues. This is about building mental immunity. It means gratitude helps you find something good, even small things. When times are tough, it can kind of buffer you against stress, help you heal.
Okay, I like that. Mental immunity. And C has to be connect, right? Linking back.
You got it. C is for connect. Gratitude reminds you you're not alone. It strengthens social bonds. When you thank someone, genuinely, it makes them feel good, feel seen. It spreads positivity.
So how do we, do gratitude? Is it just saying thanks more often?
That helps, sure. But this source recommends something more structured. A gratitude journal.
Ah, I've heard of those.
Yeah, the idea is simple. Write down, say, 5 things each day you're thankful for. But here's the key bit. Write down why. Why are you grateful for that specific thing?
Ah, the why makes you think about it more deeply.
Exactly. It trains your brain to actively scan for positives, builds that resilience muscle.
And you can look back at it later, I suppose, when things are rough.
Definitely. A little reminder of the good stuff. The source points out, we humans tend to focus on the negative. It's probably an old survival thing.
The negativity bias. Yeah.
So cultivating gratitude, it takes conscious effort. It's a practice.
Right. Practice seems to be the key word for both forgiveness and gratitude. And this connection theme, valuing others, that loops back nicely to the World Happiness Report again, and its focus on benevolence, caring, sharing.
Yeah, and this section had some really, really interesting findings. Get this. Expecting kindness from other people. That's actually a stronger predictor of your own happiness than, say, not being a victim of crime or not having a major mental illness.
Wait, really? Expecting good things is more powerful for happiness than avoiding bad things.
Yeah.
That feels counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it? But that's what the data suggests. And it also suggests we're often too pessimistic about how kind others actually are. They mentioned those wallet return experiments where they dropped wallets in different cities.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about those.
Well, the actual return rates were way higher than people predicted they would be, especially in places like the Nordic countries where social trust is high.
So maybe we're just not giving people enough credit. Or maybe expecting less actually makes us less happy.
Could be. The source says both doing kind things and expecting kindness contribute to happiness. But that expectation part seems particularly potent. Just feeling you live somewhere kind gives you a real boost.
Okay. And what about the giving side? Why does being benevolent make us feel good? The report had the 3 C's for that, right?
Right. 3 things that make giving feel more rewarding. First C, caring connections. Giving to people you have strong ties with, family, close friends, that tends to boost your well-being more than giving to strangers or distant causes. That mutual give and take in close relationships, super important for well-being.
So helping a neighbor feels different from clicking a donate button online, potentially.
Potentially, yeah, because of that connection. Second C, choice. Feeling you have autonomy, that you chose to help, is key. Voluntary giving feels better than obligated giving. It meets that need for autonomy, lets you express your value.
Right. It feels like your action, not something you had to do. And the last C.
Clear positive impact. Seeing or knowing your help actually made a difference. That amplifies the joy. They use an example like donating for a specific thing, like a bed net, where you can picture the impact. It makes it more concrete, more rewarding. The identifiable victim effect is related here too.
Got it. Knowing your specific action helps someone specific.
Exactly.
The report also touched on bigger scale stuff, like countries giving aid or taking in refugees.
It did. It's more complex there. National aid, ODA, is linked to slightly higher national happiness, interestingly. But hosting refugees, while obviously a huge act of benevolence, can sometimes be linked to slightly lower happiness for the host country, likely due to the stresses and resources involved. But the main point was that these big national decisions are often quite far removed from our daily lives, our local communities, where those personal connections really matter for our happiness.
And it even mentioned forgiveness again, saying it's needed internationally too, but it's obviously much harder when trust is low.
Yeah, it shows these themes scale up, but the sources we looked at really emphasize that personal and community level for individual happiness.
Okay, that brings us to a very modern pressure point for happiness. Work-life balance. The Sakid source went into this.
Yes, and it had a useful way of defining it. Not necessarily a strict 50-50 split, right?
Right.
It's more about work and life not negatively impacting each other, and that this balance shifts, depending on your life stage.
That feels more realistic. It's not about perfect symmetry, but avoiding clashes.
Exactly. And a really important point it makes: poor work-life balance. Often an organizational problem, not just an individual failing.
Ah, so blaming the employee isn't always fair.
Right. And companies pay the price too: lower productivity, people being off sick more, higher turnover. It's bad for business.
So what can companies actually do about it, according to the source?
Well, the practical stuff,
Yeah.
flexible hours, remote work options where possible, those are big ones. But also things like managers actively managing workload, making sure it's distributed fairly, offering good health benefits, and crucially, including mental health support, access to psychologists, things like that.
And the culture matters too, I bet, not just policies on paper.
Hugely. The source really emphasizes creating a culture that genuinely values balance. Leaders need to model it,
Mhm.
not sending emails late at night, respecting personal time, evaluating people on results, not just FaceTime or hours logged.
Okay, but what if you're in a job where the culture isn't great and the company isn't helping? What can the individual do?
The source has advice there too. First, define the problem for yourself. What's the specific issue? Second, talk about it. Communicate with your manager, maybe suggest solutions. And third, take individual action to protect yourself where you can.
Like what kind of action?
Prioritizing your health, sleep,
Hmm.
exercise, setting firm boundaries around work time, scheduling breaks, planning holidays properly, learning to say no or negotiate when you're overloaded, and maybe the hardest one, trying not to respond to work stuff outside of hours, disconnecting.
Yeah, that takes discipline. So it's a partnership ideally, but individuals still have some agency.
Exactly. You're not powerless even if the situation isn't ideal.
So when we pull all this together from the sources, wow, it's clear happiness isn't simple. It's not just one thing.
Not at all. It's this really rich mix, isn't it? Internal stuff like managing anger through forgiveness, boosting positivity with gratitude.
Uh-huh.
Then there's the huge role of social connection, caring, sharing, expecting kindness, feeling autonomous, seeing your actions matter.
And finding that balance, especially with work demanding so much these days.
Yeah. And all these insights, these different angles, they came straight from the materials you provided. It gives us a kind of toolkit based on research and different perspectives for thinking about happiness today.
It really does. It feels less like chasing some elusive thing and more like something you actively build.
It's a great way to put it. It's something you participate in creating through choices and practices day by day.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive,
Mhm.
we've seen the power of inner work, like forgiveness and gratitude, the absolute necessity of connection and kindness, and the ongoing challenge, but importance of balance, especially work-life balance.
And thinking back to that World Happiness Report point, the one about how expecting kindness is such a strong happiness predictor, and how we often underestimate people's actual kindness.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
It really leaves you with something to think about, doesn't it?
Definitely.
So, here's a thought for you to consider. If the evidence suggests expecting kindness and being kind are so linked to feeling happy, and we tend to lowball how kind people are, what might happen? How might things change for your happiness and maybe the feel of your community if you consciously decided to practice both expecting and offering more kindness, even just in little ways, every day?
That's a really interesting question to sit with. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.